Welcome to Retro Scale Modeling. This is the first part of the Star Trek Next Generation USS Enterprise NCC 1701C build. And this part 1 is dealing with the Aztec decals. As you can see here on the main picture, this is just the basic shape that I'll be creating using Photoshop. And this is just a little tutorial how I go about it. So let's jump into it. First of all, I've taken a photograph of the hull and I'm going to be making the pattern. So I need to have a blank file up. So I'm creating one with the width of 0.64 for the width and the height is 0.25 for the height, and this is in centimeters. And once I've done that, I go to my selection tool for color. Now, the Enterprise C is bluish, so I want a sort of steel blue color. So I'm just moving the pointer over to a color that I'm happy with, first of all. As you can see, you've got a full spectrum range of colors there. And then it's over to the shape selection tool, and then option for the rectangular shape. And now it's just a matter of creating little boxes and filling up the gap how you like. Now I'm going to be using the basic Aztec pattern, but obviously it's up to you how you want to do it. To save you a little time and a lot of hassle, try and copy the layers as you go. That way the layers, each rectangular box will be the same size as your previous one, and that just helps with spacing and tooling out the shape to make it look balanced. So I'll just quickly go through this, fast forwarding a little bit, but you can still see how I'm going about it. It may be helpful to get a picture of the Aztec pattern before you start, so you know exactly how it's going to look for yourself. Also, it depends on what photo suite you're using. I'm using Photoshop 21, but there's many other different free photo suite softwares out there that you can use, and they all work on the same premises as this. You're just creating layers upon layers to make up the shape. So that's the first one done. Now you will have to make 2 patterns. Before I go into the second one, I'm just going to drag that over onto the main picture and zoom in there. You can see it's very small, but I've done that purposely. I will be resizing it as I go along, but I want it small and compact because there'll be times when I'll be having it as small as that, maybe. But it's just how I do it. You can do it larger if you wish. It doesn't really matter, but I prefer to do it small then work my way up to a larger one. And so then it's back to the original shape, and now it's time to remodel that shape into the next part of the pattern. So I'm just maneuvering these boxes I've already made up and into a new pattern, and this will make up the second box. So again, I'll just fast forward this. As you can see, I'm just moving the layers into different shapes and sizes. You can start with a brand new blank page if you wish, but I just do it this way. Again, it's all personal choice. So this is it coming along now, almost into position. Don't be worried if you can't get it looking how a picture looks. It's all open to choice. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Just play about with it and see what you can come up with. The main thing is it's got to be the same sort of size as your first box and same color obviously, but it's also, the pattern's got to be different as well, so you can't tell between the two of them. And once you build both boxes up, save them as well. If you're just using the one file, save it before you carry on, then create a new save after the second one is built up. So then it was just a case of adding the second one onto it, zooming in again, and I'll be increasing the size to the one that was made there. So there we now have the 2 Aztec patterns made up, and this is all you need now to build the Aztec patterns on the Enterprise. It's just going to be a repeat pattern all the way through. And how I do this is just by duplicating the layers. So I go into my layer panel over there, scroll down to duplicate, press OK, and there we go, your duplication. Now you may have noticed there, it's alternative patterns. You don't want the same one running up all the way, so it's alternative blocks as you build up the pattern. So now it's time to lay out the pattern properly. And first of all, I'm taking the top of the saucer section here, and it's a photograph I took after I primed it in red. Call it whatever you want. I think I call this one saucer section upper, something like that. Yeah, you can see it there, upper section. Now this is the important bit. Measure the actual unit. So the saucer section, which is, this one happens to be 23.5 centimeters by 23. Now that's very important, but I'll come on to that in a moment. So create your blank file of 23.5 to 23.5 for this particular one. I then go back to the main photo and take a grab tool, selection tool, and click on the area I want to select. So this is the quick selection tool. I grabbed it over, selected it, and then Control C, copied it, then over onto my new blank file, Control V, paste it onto this. Now make sure when you've done that, you resize the photo to your square that you see here until it's almost touching the edges or touching the edges. Now the reason for that is this is the actual size of the model, and this is what you'll need to do to get an accurate representation of your decal size. It's easier to do it this way than trying to modify individual decals for the size that you require. So if your main photograph here, or your main file, is the same size as your actual model, everything you put on this page from now on will be within the size that you're going to be placing the decal on. Next is to center the saucer section onto the square. So I just take my select tool, and the idea is to center it onto the box area there. So how I do this is I use the ruler and I rotate the dish to a point where it's central. So just rotating it there, and the best way to get it central is look at your halfway point, and then on this particular section I'll just push it up to the point 12 there, and I know that little dot there is the middle of the center of the saucer section. Then bring it back down, and now I know the saucer section is central. So I'm going to do that with all the pieces, as you can see there, and now it's time to put on the actual Aztec pattern. Try and find your middle point. You can either do this by drawing some lines, temporary lines over on it to see that you've got it central, or you can just put it in on how you feel. Again, it's entirely up to the user. It depends what pattern you're going for and what you like. But as you can see there, I'm just drawing a line to make sure I'm happy with the position. But again, as I say, it's entirely up to the person and how you go about actually putting these on. Your starting position is quite important. So this is why I'm just getting this bar on there just to help me center everything how I like it. And then it's just a case of stacking them up, decreasing the size ever so slightly as I go up to form a sort of pyramid wedged shape. I then drag it down to the edge of the saucer section. Again, pick your starting point, and then once it's down there, I'll just rotate it and line it up to the actual edge of the saucer section. Now you can use the lines going up as a guide if you wish, it sometimes helps, sometimes it can be a hindrance. Once that's done, I just resize the whole thing until I'm happy with the actual size of the pattern itself. And once I'm happy with it, I'll just duplicate the layer and do the same again. Just rotate it around and fit it to the next part of the saucer section. And I'll be doing this all the way around. So as you can see, that's the first part done. They're all laid out. I will have to tweak them a little bit as I go along. But next is to build up the next pattern. So I'm taking my blocks that I made up earlier on, and I'm just making up another sort of pyramid shape, but smaller than the ones I originally made, because as you go up they're going to be decreasing in size. So same with the bottom ones, I'm just placing them into position, and I'll be either increasing or decreasing the size as I go along to make sure they fit. The idea is to get them large enough so it looks like it's one continuous pattern, and also it helps to get the angle right as well as you go along. Once your second layer done, you're going to have to erase some of it, because the nature of the shape of the dish, it's not all going to be even, but that's an easy fix. All you do is take each block, take your eraser tool and just rub out the ones that you don't want to be there. So I'm just taking off the ones that are above the I think the phaser band section. So anything above that I'm just erasing off, and then it's back to making another pyramid shape of the Aztec decals and placing them around the next set. This is how I go about it all the way through. Now for some reason I actually managed to miss out 2 blocks there, but it's not a problem. All I did was take the previous block, make sure I'm on the right layer, duplicate that layer and just copy it over into the space that was missing. If you do manage to move the saucer section that I'm showing you there, make sure you put it back into position before you carry on. Just press the back button and it will do it for you. And for the last round, I'm just doing a single, not a double pyramid here. The reason for that is it's easier to fit them, and they're going to be slightly off center to the previous ones. So it's, for me, it was important to get them to look right coming up to the center as well. So I'm just maneuvering these into position. Now once you've done all this, make sure you save your work, because you're going to be using the same layers for the upper half of the saucer section, but there'll be a bit of cutting out to do. So but make sure you save your layers. So this is all there now, and I'm going to be replacing the saucer section, the lower half. As you can see, I've just turned it off so you can't see it anymore, and I'll be placing that with the upper half. There we go, there it is in there. So I'm just doing that by dragging it onto the actual photo itself, and it just sits at the bottom there. And then I'll resave that to the upper saucer section. So now that I've effectively got 2 files, one for the lower and one for the upper. And the reason for that is I will be cutting out sections of this pattern now to fit into the top section. So first of all, I have to grab all those layers that I did and turn them into one layer. So I'm going to select them all and merge them into one layer, and then just go down to merge selected layers, and that's it into one layer. Now as you've seen at the bottom there, that's the 2 saucer sections. I'm starting on the bottom one, and what I'm doing here is just zoomed in a little bit and see where the Aztec pattern touches the phaser cannons here. I'm just taking my selection tool and going over an area like so. Now it's important that you stay on the layer that your Aztec details are on. You can just hide it while you're working on it, but then just bring it back into the forefront and then press delete, and the section that you highlighted will be cut out the main photo. So it will be the same with this one. I'm just hiding it so I can work on it, get into an area that I want selected, just running through it, depending how large you want it to be cut out. So just closing that up, and then go back to highlight it in, and just press delete, and then it gets cut out. And it's the same with the top half, the saucer section. This big middle part won't have any details on it. So again, I'm just going down to it, and I'll be selecting an area to be cut out. Now I've left the decals Aztec pattern showing to show you a little bit clearer how I'm cutting it out. And once I've received my area, I then just press delete, and it will disappear. Just make sure it is the area that you want selected first. I've done this a couple of times when I've deleted the wrong thing, which can be very annoying. And then you see it disappearing there, and that's the whole section deleted. Now I'll be doing that for the phaser bands and the live craft pods and things like that as well. It will all be coming out. So I've placed on all the Aztec pattern onto the components that I wish, as all laid out on the bottom. These are just my blocks here. So it's now to transfer all this onto a decal sheet. So it's a new file, and it's an A4 size that I'm using for my printer. It's the largest size my printer can take, as I know A4, and it's a normal standard desktop printer I'm using. I'm not using anything fancy for this. Try and set your resolution fairly low to start with, but you're going to be wanting to increase that drastically before you actually print off. But just for ease, smoothing, and saving your process power on your PC, you can use a low resolution to start with. First of all, I'm drawing a sort of map here. So I'm just taking some black lines and placing them down an area which will be then cut out to form the first decal. So effectively you're creating a decal sheet, sheet map to go along with your actual decals. I will then take my selection tool and go around the area with my selection tool, control copy, then go over to my blank file and control paste, or control V for paste, and there's your first decal there. Now move it into position how you would like it. It's entirely up to you. Make sure you number it or label it how you'd like, so you know which decal this is referring to, hence why the map is quite important. So for argument's sake, I'm calling this number 1. I've put up the grid lines just to make it easier to space out the decals, so that I'm going to be using as much of the page as possible, so there's not much wastage. Call the sheet what we want for argument's sake. Again, I'm calling this Aztec Detail Sheet 1. And I'm carrying on all the way like this around the whole saucer section, just making out the shapes, taking the area that I've mapped out and tracing along the line, and copying, then pasting that actual part onto the sheet. Now, you don't want to be copying and pasting on a different sheet or whatever. Keep it on the A4 sheet, and do not resize it to make it fit onto your new blank file, because it will copy over to from the actual size that you've cut out from, but you cannot resize it because then it won't fit your model. It's as simple as that. So as you can see there, that's how I've mapped it out. It's a little bit clumsy, but it doesn't have to be perfect, as long as you know which decal relates to that map, and that's the main thing really. So make sure again that you save it. There's nothing worse than doing all that, then quitting and realizing you've lost your detail map. and I'll be following the same procedure as I done here all the way through all the different areas. So all these photos that you see there, each one will have its own little detail sheet with all the little decals on them. When you print this out, make sure you're on at least the resolution of 600 dpi. You don't want to go below that because it will compromise the quality of the decal. The decal itself, depending on what colour you choose, is how prominent it's going to be on your model. They should be fairly light anyway and not all that noticeable. You do not want solid mass black block colours on the actual decal itself once it goes onto the model. I will go into all that though when it's time to actually place on the decals themselves on the ship. Well, I'll bring this tutorial to an end. Hope you enjoyed how I make my Aztec decals. Not necessarily the way everyone makes it, but that's how I do it. If you want to see the rest of the build, why don't you subscribe to the channel for the updates along the way, or indeed any updates of my builds in the future. Leave a comment and hit that like button as well. But thank you all very much for watching. Bye for now.